Should Cody Garbrandt get that first crack at Deiveson Figueiredo's flyweight belt? Now, full disclosure, I'm a big fan of Garbrandt. I like his style. I just kind of like the guy. But I do feel like there's a few pieces of damaging evidence that are kind of piling up against this proposal of his. First off, he's only on a one-fight win streak. It's not even a streak. That KO of Assuncao was about as brutal as they come, but it's still only one fight. His previous three were all losses. They were all KOs, two against Dillashaw and one against Pedro Munoz. As mentioned, those were KOs. They weren't decisions that were close fights. They weren't robberies. They were KOs. He was taken out of there. Perhaps just as damaging is that this is a whole new weight class for him. At flyweight, he is 0-0. I feel like if you're going to try to be a double champ, you should try to master, conquer your own weight class first. And for him, that, of course, is bantamweight. So let's check out the list of top-ranked bantamweights, the champion and the contenders, and talk about fights that you could make and definitely sell when Cody Garbrandt is one half of it. And let's also look at those individual contenders and their claim for Peter Yan's belt. So at the top of the list, of course, running this division is the champ Peter Yan. Now, I think that Peter's got several people who he could fight next, and Garbrandt makes a little bit of sense in the terms that they are already having words. They already don't like each other, it seems. But I think that you still have to keep in mind that Cody is on that one-fight win streak. But as far as the story to tell, selling that fight, it's going to be pretty easy considering the beef that already exists. Ranked as the number 1 and 2 contenders are Marlon Moraes and Aljamain Sterling, respectively. I feel like they both have a pretty good claim to fight for Peter Yan's belt. Moraes, of course, his last fight was that win over Jose Aldo, and whether you believe he won or not, the judges did, and it counts. And Jose, of course, fought in that fight for the vacant belt. So it just seems to reason that Moraes may be next in line. Sterling, of course, quickly dispensed of Sandhagen in a very impressive fashion in his last fight, and kind of seems like there's only one way to go for him, and that would be for the belt. So I think that these two are kind of in the same boat. Only one of them can fight for the belt. What's the other going to do? Well, maybe they can fight Cody for the number 1 contendership. Maybe you could even put both of those fights on the same card. That would be incredible. So I think that both of these guys, their fight with Yan is already scripted, and their fight with Garbrandt just makes sense. The third ranked contender is Garbrandt himself. So let's skip on down to the 4th, and that is Corey Sandhagen. As just mentioned, Sterling took care of him pretty quickly and pretty impressively in their last bout. But Sandhagen's still there. He's still a very competent fighter. And a fight with Garbrandt just kind of makes a lot of sense to me. They're 3 and 4. And it's a fight that a lot of people would like to see. Two pretty big names. And it gives them both a pretty good opportunity. For Garbrandt, it gives him an opportunity to put 2 wins together against top guys. And then I feel like he's really in the conversation of number 1 contendership. For Sandhagen, it gives him an opportunity to be on the main card again. That could even headline a fight night. It could be a co-main event for a pay-per-view. But it gives him that opportunity to get exposure on a main card against a big name and a chance to get back into the win column. If Sandhagen could beat Cody, then he's in that contendership conversation as well. So I think that that creates a big opportunity for both fighters and is kind of a no-brainer. Ranked number 5 is Pedro Munoz, and I don't think it makes a lot of sense for him to contend for the belt quite yet, maybe one fight away. But a fight with Garbrandt, again, makes a lot of sense. It's a pretty easy story to tell. As I mentioned earlier in this video, Munoz knocked Garbrandt out not that long ago. Just call it a revenge fight. Show clips of the last one. Have Cody talking about how he wants this one back. Pedro talking about how he's going to do it again. It's a very easy fight to sell. And again, a no-brainer. Jose Aldo comes in as the number 6 contender. Now, of course, he just fought Peter Yan for the vacant belt, so you can't turn around and give him another shot. But a fight with Garbrandt, again, this is a pretty easy one to sell. Legend versus legend, superstar versus superstar, whatever. A lot of people are going to like to see that just because they're big names. You get a lot of casuals watching this fight. Again, this appears to be a no-brainer. Now, we'll jump a lot of contenders and go way down the list to number 14, Sean O'Malley. Don't think I'm pushing Sean. I don't think he's ready for a fight against the champion yet. I do believe he'll get there eventually. So, is he ready for a title, for a fight against Yan? No. But a fight with Garbrandt, again, makes a lot of sense. They've been having this Twitter war. They've apparently got some beef going on. And again, he's a name that people are starting to get behind. Coming off of Dana White's Contender series. He's got the look. He talks a lot, and he's got some impressive finishes. Hooking those two up together, again, could be a main event for a fight night. Again, it's a win-win, and a lot of people would tune in to watch it. So looking at the bantamweight division, we see that it's stacked, it's healthy. There's a lot of options there. Peter Yan, as the champion, has a few options as to who he's going to fight next, whether it's Moraes or Sterling. And maybe you get a fight going on with Sandhagen and Munoz, as they both have just come off a loss. Put them up together, and the winner may emerge as a contender. So not only are there a lot of options for the belt for Yan, there's also a handful of great fights, great sellable fights for Garbrandt in this division. So it kind of begs the question, why not just stay at bantamweight? So now let's have a look at the flyweights. Like the bantamweight division, you got to assume there's probably a pretty good list of contenders who have a good enough claim to challenge Figueiredo for his belt. So let's pull up the top 7, and instead of going down the list, this time let's go up the list. The number 7 ranked contender is Kai Kara-France. Now let's look at what kind of evidence he has to support or not support his claim for a title shot. First of all, he's 4-1 since joining the UFC, so not a bad record. And those 5 UFC fights have come in less than 2 years, so he's been pretty active. I find that pretty cool, stay on people's minds. His loss came to Brandon Moreno, who is ranked higher than him, of course, and that really wasn't very long ago. To me, one of the bigger knocks against him is that all his fights go to decision, and that's okay at these lighter weights. It's a little more forgivable, but I just kind of want to see more domination out of a champion. So now let's ask ourselves, does he have the name recognition to sell a main event? He has a really cool name, but he really doesn't have that name recognition. Finally, the last question we'll ask is, should he fight for the title based on question 1 and 2? For Kai Kara-France, I have to say no. The number 6 ranked competitor is Jussier Formiga, and he did beat Figueiredo about 1.5 years ago, giving Figueiredo his only loss to date. That's definitely some evidence in his corner that may help sell the fight. But he has lost 3 fights in a row since then, to Benavidez, to Moreno, and to Perez, all of which ranked above him. And Benavidez and Perez were able to finish him, TKOing him. You also got to keep in mind that Jussier's 35 years old, and he's got a lot of fight years underneath his belt. You kind of got to believe that his best days are behind him. Does he have that name recognition? Well, maybe a little bit because he's been around for so long. But based on those 2 things, should he fight Figueiredo for the belt? I have to say no. The number 5 ranked flyweight contender is Alexander Pantoja. Now, his last fight, he found himself on the wrong side of a decision against Askar Askarov. He has also been beaten by Figueiredo about 1 year ago or so, which means he's 1-2 in his last 3 fights. It's not looking good for him. Does he have that name recognition? Not really. Should he fight for the belt? Not yet. The number 4 ranked contender is Alex Perez. Now, Alex is 6-1 in the UFC. His only loss coming to Joseph Benavidez, which is nothing to be ashamed of. Benavidez beats most people. Now, of his 6 wins, and this is something I like about Perez, 4 of them have come by finish. He's got an anaconda choke, an arm triangle, a TKO, and a KO. Furthermore, he's one of the guys that has come from Dana White's Contender series. So he's kind of got the UFC machine behind him. He probably has more fans than the rest of the guys on this list. So does he have that name recognition? Kinda. Should he fight Figueiredo for the belt next? I'm going to give Alex our first maybe. Our number 3 ranked contender is Askar Askarov. Now, Askar is undefeated, and that's saying something. Everybody likes a champion who's never been beaten before. He's 2-0-1 in the UFC, drawing only against Brandon Moreno, who is coming up next. That means he's only 3 fights in, but I guess we can look past that. My biggest beef against Askar is that all 3 of his UFC fights have gone to decision, and as mentioned, I don't always like to see this out of our champions. That said, I do think that of all the people on this list, Askar has the best chance of beating Figueiredo. But moving on to the name recognition, does he have it? Not really. Should he fight Figueiredo based on the evidence? Probably not yet. The number 2 ranked contender is Brandon Moreno, and Brandon is 2-2-1 in his last 5 UFC fights. That's over the past 3 years. He had that draw against Askar. He was beaten by Pantoja, who we talked about, and Sergio Pettis, who isn't in the UFC anymore. He just recently had a fight in Bellator. Moreno's another one of these guys that can't seem to finish the fight. They all kind of go to decision. And that record is a little spotty. Does he have the name recognition? No. Should he be fighting Figueiredo for the next belt? I don't think so. The number 1 ranked contender in the flyweight division is still Joseph Benavidez. Now, obviously, Benavidez's last 2 fights have been against Figueiredo, and he's lost them both. He got beat badly in that second one. So you really can't say that he deserves a 3rd sequential shot at the belt. But that said, nobody beats Benavidez. Nobody other than Figueiredo has beaten him. I mean, that's obviously not true, but as far as active UFC fighters are concerned, Figueiredo's the only one, and Dominic Cruz, if he's still active, I don't know. But it seems as though Benavidez has put a pretty big gap between the number 1 contender and everybody else. I mean, the fact that he's still the number 1 contender after being beaten so handily twice by the champ kind of says something about this division. Does he have name recognition? Absolutely. But should he fight for the belt again next? No. So unlike the bantamweight division, the flyweight division just doesn't have a long list of contenders who are actively challenging for a shot at the belt. Deiveson Figueiredo just is kind of sitting at the top of that hill all by himself. With Benavidez presumably out of the title picture for a while, there's really nobody left who can finish the fights and brings that superstar quality. Nobody except Cody Garbrandt. Cody is fun to watch. His fights are usually finished. He's got a lot of name recognition. And the bottom line is people will watch this fight. The UFC, I'm sure, has noticed this as well. They're saying the bantamweight division is healthy, it's fine, it's going to be there. The flyweight division needs a little bit of help. Why don't we shine a little bit of light on the flyweight division, set up Figueiredo versus Garbrandt, let these other guys kind of fight each other and work the rankings out themselves. Should Cody get the fight? From a business standpoint, it makes a lot of sense. Is Cody going to get the fight? Absolutely. That's my thoughts on this hot topic. Now, I'm a big fan of Garbrandt and Figueiredo. I'd love to see this fight, and I assume that we'll all get a chance to. When that happens, I bet a lot of people are going to be watching it. Now, I know that as fight fans, we'd love to talk about hypothetical fights, and we hope that we get to see them. So come back to the channel, and we'll talk about more of them. Till next time.
Oops.